Welcome to From Caving In to Crushing It, the podcast for those who find themselves immersed in adversity and choose to write their story instead of having others write it for them. I'm Drew Duraney, and I'm your host. Lee, it's good to see you. Thanks so much for coming on.
Hi, Drew. Thanks for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
You're welcome. I've been looking forward to this. So, I enjoy talking with people who, like yourself, who've gone through a lot in life and been able to get through it and get through it stronger. And we were talking earlier about how you and your business and personally you're thriving, and this gives the audience an opportunity to realize that we go through things in life that challenge us. And when we're up to the challenge, we're going to come through fine. So you're going to give some inspiration to the audience. So, tell me a little about yourself growing up and where your defining moment occurred and how it all came about.
Sure. I think I've had a few defining moments over the past few years.
I think you have.
Yeah, definitely. So let me start off by saying that I'm based here in Manchester in the UK,
Mhm.
but I was originally born in Kashmir, which is north of Pakistan, and I moved to the UK when I was 7 years old to be with my father who was working here. And that was the first um, kind of moment where I became self-aware
Mhm.
in terms of coming to a new country, learning a new language, making new friends from, nothing, and not actually being able to speak the language. Okay, so and there wasn't a lot of Asian families around where I lived.
Okay.
So it's a brand new culture for me, and it was a kind of I would say that for about 12 months I was in kind of a shell shock, okay, in terms
Right.
of understanding where have I come, why have I come, this place, and the other big thing was I came from my grandparents had a massive farm in Kashmir,
Mhm.
so I actually had, the freedom of the valley that I lived in because I
Right.
could actually roam about everywhere. I was free. And then I've come to the UK and we moved to a little street, and all the houses are next door to each other. And all of
Mhm.
a sudden, you feel so boxed in.
Yes.
Okay. And that for me was the biggest, um, I think, change
Right.
for me to actually cope with, because actually having that freedom in the green valleys of Kashmir
Right.
and then coming to a smog-filled environment.
Well, geez, what a transition! I'm telling you.
What a transition. Yeah. So I think that was the first defining moment. And then I think the next defining moment was when I was in my early teens, mid-teens, around 13, 14. And that's when my father, who was working in the cotton industry here
Mhm.
in Manchester, he was made redundant because the cotton industry here in the UK was going through some big changes,
Right.
and he got made redundant. And what happened was, what I saw was that he'd actually given up because the cotton industry was his life. So he worked in the cotton industry in India, and he came to the UK and he worked in the cotton industry, and that's all he actually knew. And then when he was actually made redundant and all the factories had actually closed down, he kind of gave up, and he didn't actually have a life plan as to do what to do
Right.
after his working life. So his health deteriorated. He obviously got diabetes, and he didn't really know how to cope, and also, um, and how to communicate that to his family as well.
Right.
So what I saw was, a very healthy man in his mid 40s within a couple of years dwindle into someone, who was, not even 10% of the person that he was a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
So having experienced that at first hand, I made a vow that whatever I do in life, that I will never ever give up. Okay,
Oh,
and I will always have
right.
whatever happens to me.
Hmm.
I will not put myself in that position where I give up.
Well,
Okay.
there's so much there, Lee. When most men, and I'm sure you can attest to this, we tie our self worth to the industry in which we work, and we define
Yeah.
ourselves by our profession. And
Yeah.
when we tie our self identity to an outside entity or circumstance, we're at risk for losing
Yeah.
our identity. And I can feel for your father because, when a decision like the cotton industry moving out of the UK happens, he had a choice of either moving with it to wherever
Yeah.
it was going or staying home. And it had to be difficult for you to see that. And I know you're living your vow right now. So tell me more about, did you attempt? I mean, it's a young age when this happened to your father. For you to be in your teens,
Yeah.
did you ever sit down and talk with him?
Well, I couldn't because I wasn't that aware about emotional health at
Right,
that point because this
right.
was the early 80s. And
Mhm.
at that point, I think nobody was actually having these kind of conversations,
Very
okay?
true.
Because it was all man up, um, and when you're a teenager, and you're not actually aware of these issues.
Hmm.
And obviously he had some medical help. He was going for sessions with the doctors and the psychiatrists and things like that. But um, it was quite a difficult time because we were actually at a loss as to why he's actually going through that,
Right.
because I mean these kind of issues weren't actually around at that time. And
Mhm.
had we had the hindsight of dealing with emotional issues, or putting together a new life plan,
Right.
or things like this, it would have actually helped a lot. But obviously, early 80s, um, we didn't have the privilege of that kind of knowledge.
Right. Absolutely. So tell me, after your dad started to deteriorate, what happened to him after that? You said he had diabetes, and
Yeah, so unfortunately, he passed away.
I'm
He
sorry.
had a heart attack in
Mhm.
87. I think it was when I was 17.
Jeez.
And
Okay.
that made my life, those few years obviously made my life quite challenging as well,
Of course.
because we were a family of seven children
Hmm.
within the family. And I was the eldest boy, the second eldest in the family. And yeah, so that left a big void in our lives.
Hmm.
And I had to obviously look at my life and where I was going with it, because obviously my mom was alone. She was going to bring up six siblings
Yeah.
between 3 years old and um, 15 years old, and I
Mhm.
was 17 at the time.
Right.
And obviously, I needed to support her with it as well. We had an elder sister who had actually moved away when she was married. So that was a very, very challenging time. I had to make some difficult choices in terms of, where to move forward with my education,
Mhm.
what I was actually going to do with my life, and the opportunities that were actually open to me at that time were very limited as well. Uh, so um, I got into an apprenticeship scheme at an engineering company
Mhm.
doing accountancy, um, and
You got a
I
smile on
did,
your face. I'm sure there's a story
yeah,
behind that.
yeah. So I did 2 years of the apprenticeship,
Hmm.
and after the 2 years, I approached the company and I asked them, so my apprenticeship is now up. What's next for me? They said, yeah, we've really appreciated all your hard work. You've done really, really well, and we'd love to keep you on. but we're only going to give you a salary raise of £500
Mhm.
per year. Okay, £500. Considering that I'd worked my butt off for
Yeah.
2 years
Right.
to prove myself. Okay, I only got a raise for. I got an offer to raise my salary, and considering that it was actually on a very low apprenticeship wage as well
Yes.
at that time. I was just shell shocked. And what I said to the boss, I said, well, uh, now I know how much I am of value to you. um, Thank you very much for all the support that you've given me, but I think my time here is up.
Well, good for you. Good for you, because
Yeah,
you knew your
and
value and they
yeah, yeah,
undervalued you. So,
yeah, absolutely. So I walked out there and then, straight after the meeting. I
right.
said, I'm not coming back.
Hmm.
Okay. So I started. I had no life plan. Okay, I didn't have any jobs lined up.
Right.
And what happened was I came home and my mum asked me, "Well, what's happened? You look a bit upset." I said, "Well, I've just walked out of my job." And and I remember back at that time I was 19, and I remember back um, when in my school days
Mhm.
looking at the newspaper or job adverts, and I always used to see these job adverts for salespeople. Okay,
Yeah.
earn like £50,000,
There you
company
go.
car,
Right. Of course. Yeah. The company got the shiny objects. Yep. I
so
got
shiny objects, all of that. And then I said, okay, let me get a newspaper and I'll see what's going on, and I'll see if I can get one of those jobs. Um, so I actually applied online to this very small advert.
you.
It said earn like £500 a week sales. So I went in, and that's when my love affair with sales actually started. Okay,
Okay. Yeah.
and the job was selling timeshare. Okay.
Oh boy. Timeshare. I know that well. Maybe you
Yeah,
approached me. Geez. Okay.
yeah. Yeah. And do you know what? That was the best education
Good.
I ever had in my life,
Okay.
because the sales manager at the time took me to one side. Okay, and he said, "This is how you sell. This is how we sell." And I remember the training to this day because I
Hmm.
still use the same principles.
Okay.
Okay, and and that kind of was the pivotal moment for me, where everything changed for me, because all of a sudden my communication skills improved,
Hmm.
my questioning skills improved,
Okay.
my listening skills definitely improved.
Well, so what? Wait, can you shed some light on what these training was? Because I'm sure I could use some of this.
Yeah, the the emphasis on the training was to get to know the person in front of you.
The
Okay,
relationship, right?
build that relationship. Don't even talk about what you're selling for the first 20 to 30 minutes.
Hmm.
Just focus on the relationship,
Right.
and just focus on their needs, their challenges.
Hmm.
Okay, and walk a mile in their
In their
shoes.
shoes, right? Right.
Okay, and build that empathy. Okay, and then okay, you can actually present your solutions in a language that they will actually understand.
Wow.
Okay,
That's
so
that's to be able to have somebody in the timeshare industry be able to train you like that is unbelievable. It's
absolutely,
oh
yeah,
my gosh.
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
We were banned from talking about the product for the first 30 to
I
40
love that.
minutes.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so
Hmm.
the emphasis, and also considering that we were actually doing off-site selling, we weren't actually on-site at the resort. Okay,
Okay.
so we were stuck in an office in Manchester,
Wow.
selling resorts in Medina in Spain, south of
Wow.
Spain,
Yeah.
and it was all of video and a brochure. Okay,
Wow.
so
Okay, that's challenging.
okay,
Yeah.
this is 1989,
Wow.
1990. There's no PowerPoints.
Right.
Okay,
Right. See this
or
brochure?
anything like that. Yeah, a- anything like that.
Right.
So you actually had no choice but to build that relationship.
Hmm.
Okay, and for you to build a friendship with that person within the hour and
Hmm.
then have them write a check, okay, or get their credit card out and spend five to $10,000 with you, okay. And remember, they were a complete stranger to you 1 hour ago,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yep.
And then they're giving you five to 10,000 pounds or dollars, okay, to
Hmm.
buy something that they actually had no idea that they were actually going to buy an
Wow.
hour ago,
Yep.
okay.
Absolutely.
So, um, so I learned from that, and then obviously I moved on after a couple of years,
Hmm.
went into telesales, which again was a great education on how
Yeah.
to build relationships over the telephone.
Of course.
And then I had the opportunity to work for an American company called 9X. They
Okay.
were
I've
the
heard of them. Yeah.
they were the pioneers of cable television and telephony here in the
Right.
UK
Hmm.
back in the early 90s. And I did a wonderful 4.5, 5 years with them.
Hmm.
And that was knocking door to door, selling cable TV.
All the different types of sales. You got door to door. You got the cold calling. You got the timeshare. That no, this is a
Absolutely.
wonderful, wonderful education that you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So the biggest education was to get to talk to different types of people
Right.
and get a viewpoint of their world. Okay,
Mm,
because we had different demographics.
right.
When you're selling door to door,
Right.
you have the multi-million-pound houses,
Hmm.
and then you have, you know, the flats that people live in,
Right. Hmm.
or the local city-run flats and housing as well.
Right.
So you got a viewpoint of every person from every walk of life.
Hmm.
Okay. So, and that really gave me a really great grounding in terms of understanding different viewpoints, okay, and different perspectives of how people think and how their status, okay, in society also influences how they actually think as well.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that taught me a lot. And then I got made redundant well, I actually chose redundancy
That was it.
after
Okay. All right.
4.5, 5 years
Right.
of being on the road. And the internet came along.
Here we
So I
go.
decided,
Here we go.
so I remember I didn't take computers at school.
Right.
I knew nothing. So I decided that with my redundancy money, that I was actually going to take part of that money and invest it into a computer.
Good for you.
And
Okay.
and at that time, computers were being advertised in the local newspapers.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I filled the form in the newspaper, ordered the computer,
Yeah.
and within a year, I'd actually learned how to design websites.
There we go. Wow. Wow.
Yeah, from no
Okay.
knowledge to using Adobe PageMail
Self-taught. Yeah.
to design business websites. So and
Wow.
then I set up a business to help the local businesses around Manchester to get them online and have a web presence.
That's
And
great.
so I was doing that for a couple of years, and then mobile technology came along,
Okay.
and we started. I got an offer from a friend that I knew to come and work for him. And he had a company that was doing mobile content for the
Okay.
cell phones.
Right.
Okay, so you
Right.
remember the ringtones and logos, the black and white ringtones and logos?
I do. Yeah, I certainly do.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. So the company I was working with, they were designing platforms to be able to order those ringtones and logos
Okay.
via television,
Yeah.
via the actual mobile phone itself.
Huh.
So I spent a wonderful 5 years working for that company as an international strategy manager.
Hmm.
I was in the right place at the right time. So
Mm.
we went from cable television, which was quite new in the UK, to, well, and then to the internet, and
Right.
then to mobile technology.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then I gradually moved into broadcasting, working on behind the scenes of um, a game show
Oh, no kidding.
that we had in Paris, in the UK, and also in the US on the Game Show Network.
Right.
And yeah, so that was my working life.
Okay.
And then I decided that enough was enough working for other people, and I decided to start my own business.
I was waiting for that. I was waiting for that. I mean, and all right. So, how old were you then when you decided to start your own business? It's like
I
30,
was 35.
35. Okay. All right.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
So
about that
it's never
time.
too
Yeah.
late.
No,
Yeah,
it's
it's
never
never
too
too
late.
late.
Right.
And the wake-up call was for 5 years, I'd actually been working for this mobile company, and we'd been doing a lot for them. I was traveling a lot for them.
Right.
And the thing is, that company grew very fast over
Mm.
the 5 years. And the more you did, the more it was actually demanded of you.
Okay.
Okay.
Of course. Yeah.
And then I thought I was getting to a stage of burnout. Okay. And I thought, well, I need to do something for myself. Okay. I need to breathe. Okay. I need to spend time with my young family because at that
Mm.
time,
Right.
I also had 5 children of myself.
At 35, you had five.
Yeah,
Wow.
absolutely. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now you're nearing, yeah, close to the age of your father when he was
Yeah.
redundant in the cotton industry and he had seven kids. So,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Here
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
go. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm 53 now. And so I've been in business for the past 15 years.
Okay. Wonderful.
And that's been a fantastic achievement because, as you know, 85% of new businesses fail within the 5 years.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So for me to be able to survive 15 years has been absolutely brilliant.
That's
And then
great.
the second thing I'm very proud about is that I fell into the trade show industry completely by mistake.
By mistake. You do a lot of by mistakes and you're in the right place at the right time. So I want to
Yeah,
hear about this trade show stuff. Go ahead.
yeah, yeah.
This is good.
I was in Chicago. I was
Uh-huh.
working as a consultant for a software company.
Okay.
This was back in the year 2007.
Hmm.
And I went to this trade show. We had a very small booth that we, took from the UK. So it was like a small pop-up.
Right.
It was actually at the show called AdTech. It was advertising technology.
Right. Right.
And it was at Navy Pier in Chicago. And I remember it like yesterday because we landed, we put the booth up, and we actually had no traffic. Okay, so
Oh,
we were actually
no.
at the
Yeah.
back of the hall because
Oh,
we booked at the very last minute.
there we go. They put you in the corner. I got you. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. And then I thought, right, let's go around and see what's happening and see if
Good.
we can go and engage with, some of the exhibitors and some of the other attendees and
Right.
so on. And
Mhm.
then something happened, okay, because what I
Okay.
saw was that about 85% of the exhibitors were being very passive. They weren't actually engaging with the attendees.
Okay.
Okay. They were actually waiting for the attendees to come to the booth and then actually have a conversation. And then there was two or three booths that were actually very dynamic in terms of engaging with the
Hmm.
attendees,
Yeah.
questioning them, bring them onto the booth, telling their story, capturing the data, and then obviously looking at how they could actually follow up after the event. Okay, so they had a clear strategy. They were very proactive in their engagement. They knew exactly what the type of attendees that they actually needed to talk to. And I thought, why are these two, three, or four companies doing it this way?
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
then you've got all the other exhibitors just being very passive.
Right.
And then that light bulb moment happened
Hmm.
when I remembered back to my timeshare training.
There we go. Okay. Good. Good. I love when you can tie it back to something. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And I remembered that it was all about engaging people in conversation, okay, making it about them first,
Right.
okay. And I thought, I really get this concept because it's totally been drummed into me
Hmm.
from, day one that I came into sales, okay. And I saw an opportunity where, 85%, I said, if 85% of the exhibitors here are not being proactive,
Hmm.
okay, then maybe I can actually help them, okay, to be proactive,
Right.
okay. So That's how Expo Star started. So
Mm,
I did some research for about 4 or 5 months. I
right.
had those nagging doubts. I asked advice of people, and they said,
Hmm.
well, the trade show is very competitive
Right.
industry. Okay, you've got lots of players. You're from a technology background. Okay, you know nothing about trade shows. How are you going to do it? So we actually had a lot of people advising me against going into the industry. But something inside said, no, this is something that's absolutely right. I actually believe in this
Good for
concept
you.
because,
Yep. Yep.
um, and then one weekend in early December 2007,
Hmm.
after 4 or 5 months of just, you know, going back and forth and,
Hmm.
uh, listening to the left show,
Yeah.
the devil on the left hand
Right.
side and
Yep.
the angel on the right hand
Yeah.
side.
Back and forth. Yeah. Oh,
Back and forth.
yeah.
I thought, yeah, you know, sod it, let's do it. Okay,
Good
so
for you.
that that weekend, I put the website together, and luckily, obviously, I knew how to put
Yeah. You
websites
grabbed
together.
that from the past. Okay. Yep.
So, and then I put the website live that weekend, and then on Monday or Tuesday, I send out an email newsletter to some exhibitors that were exhibiting at a show in January in London.
Okay.
And then within the first week, I got my first order.
Wow. So,
And
so
that
tell me
was,
about that order. How did that so how did that transpire? They reached out to you because they saw
yeah,
your newsletter
yeah, yeah. They saw my email.
email.
They reached out and they said, we need some help demonstrating this golfing game.
Huh.
And I thought, okay, we can do that for you. At that point, I had no idea.
No idea. Yep. Hey, say
And
yes. Say yes, we
yeah,
can do
so,
that.
yeah, I'll take the order.
Yep.
Yeah, so I explained to them what we do, and then I found, luckily, I knew two people from my broadcasting days who were presenters,
Hmm.
and I got them to go and work on the trade show and be able to engage with the attendees, bring them, and then demonstrate this golfing game. And it was a great success. And then um, tragedy struck at the end of December, and you know you've got all of this momentum, you've got this excitement, you've just started the business, and then you get a call on a Saturday evening. Oh, mum's fallen.
Oh
I've
no.
had to take her to the hospital, and yeah, so it's 4 o'clock on a Saturday morning. Uh, wake up, go to the hospital, and the doctors say it's not looking good. She's had a brain hemorrhage,
Oh
and then by
jeez.
7 a.m. She passed away.
Oh, I'm sorry, Lou.
So
Jeez.
this is December the 30th,
Hmm.
2 days before New Year's,
Wow.
and it's like being hit by a truck
Yeah.
and you don't know where to turn. Okay,
Yeah. Yes.
so yeah, so from being on a high of starting your new business, getting those orders in,
Yeah.
and then bang,
Dang.
back to zero. Okay,
Mm.
and you think, how do I pick myself off after this?
Yes.
So I took a couple of weeks. We went back to Kashmir. That's where she was buried. She wanted to be buried at home,
Right.
and then came back. And the thing that kept me going was um, that my mum never gave up,
Yeah.
even after my father died.
Right. Right.
She brought up 7 kids on her own.
Yes.
And I thought, I'm going to use some of that energy.
Of course. Yes.
And I'm sure she'd want me to make a success of myself.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I used that to really, dive deep into the business and give it my all. And we did it. Okay, we for the first 3 years, my goal was to be able to survive, pay my mortgage,
Right.
pay my salary, and put food on the table for the
Able.
kids.
Right. Right.
Okay, okay. And the goal after 3 years, as we got busier, was to take on my first employee. Okay.
Wow. Okay.
And then the next goal after that was move out of my home office into an official office.
Official office. Yes.
Yeah, so I did that. So the next goal was to be able to pay the office rent and pay my assistant. Okay,
Yes. Yes.
and then the goal 3 years after that was to move into the city centre. Okay, because obviously we live on the outskirts of Manchester.
Right.
So the goal then was to move into the city centre, and we did that. And then the goal was to get a couple of more employees.
Right.
So within 10 years, we'd actually grown the company. We'd actually recruited a network of over 2,000 freelancers
Wow.
around the globe.
Right.
And we'd done projects from Los Angeles all the way to Sydney, Australia.
Wow. That's
Okay.
wonderful. Yep.
And for somebody who's actually come outside of the industry,
Mm-hmm.
and then to be a market leader and to be trusted by some of my peers in the industry who've been in
Right.
the industry a very long time.
Right.
um, I'm very, very proud of that.
I mean, Lee,
Um,
exude. You've got perseverance, resilience, innovation, creativity. You've been able to pick up skills from different industries and adapt them to what you're doing now. So a lot of your, not just the knowledge you've acquired, the wisdom you've lived
yeah,
through this, you're using every aspect of your real life education, whether it was tragedy with mom and dad or the redundancy that happened with the jobs, and you've, I don't think it's luck that you end up in the right place at the right time. I don't believe in luck. I believe you you had a strategy and you have this way of knowing which road to to turn on, and you notice things, and I get, wow, it's impressive. I'm proud
yeah,
of you, man. That's
yeah.
awesome.
The the one the two instances in my life that actually helped a great deal was that number one, I was fortunate enough at a very young age to start thinking about self-learning. Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
um, the first one of the first ever books I got was Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow
They can
Rich.
grow rich. Yep, absolutely.
Okay. And I remember some of the principles in there. And then when I was age 23, I had the privilege of attending a Unleash the Power Within with Tony Robbins
Okay. Yep,
in
yep.
Birmingham. This was back in 1993, well
Mhm.
before he was, famous where he is
Right,
now.
right, exactly. Yep, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, and I had the privilege of doing the fire walk
I
with
was gonna
him.
say you walked
Yeah, yeah,
on
yeah.
fire. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, and that was, you know, at the age of 23. So,
Hmm.
and that really helped with knocking door to door,
Right.
because it really kept me going. And the other thing was always working smart,
Hmm.
okay, not hard. So
Right.
I've always wanted to do it. Um, you know, even now, I don't knock on doors. I don't make cold calls.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
What I do is I try to build relationships with the people that who can actually help me and
Hmm.
the people that I can actually help as well. Okay.
Absolutely. Right.
So
Right.
what we do is we look for reciprocal relationships.
Hmm.
And I think that really is the biggest learning point for me has always been to know your subject matter inside out.
Right.
Okay, so you
Hmm.
become the expert in your industry.
Right.
Okay,
Hmm.
so in timeshare, I read everything that there was to know about that timeshare resort because you never knew what people's interests were. So if they were
Absolutely.
interested in boating, they could have been interested in golfing. Okay,
Hmm.
or it could have been a paddle pool for their kids. Okay,
Right.
so
Yep.
things it really pays to know the small details.
Hmm.
Okay, because you never know when you can actually use that.
That's true.
And then in cable television, I made it my mission to actually learn about all of the TV channels that were on cable TV.
Okay.
Okay, because you never knew what people's interests were.
Absolutely.
Okay, and
Right.
then when it came to business selling, I wanted to know what their core challenges were.
Hmm.
Okay,
Hmm.
so right, with telephony, okay, or whether it was making money, saving money,
Yeah.
improving their lifestyle, or improving the business processes, whatever it may be. I've always made it my business to actually understand, right, how can I help people, all
Hmm.
right,
Absolutely.
and actually building myself with that knowledge. And if you want to be really good at um, if you want to really be good in your industry,
Hmm.
I always say take the time out to become the expert in that industry. All right.
That's
So,
great advice.
and by using that advice myself, it's really, really helped me because what I always say again to business consultants, to coaches, mentors, is take a piece of your own medicine.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah,
So, Lee, all right. So, I got a couple final questions for you. The first one is you are sitting down with 7 to 10-year-old Lee,
yeah.
and you want to give him some life advice. What are you going to tell him?
I would tell him always believe in yourself,
Hmm.
um, and the universe will always have his back.
I
Okay,
love that.
and not to be afraid of anything, um, and to try everything at least once. Don't be
Ah,
afraid of trying new things.
I love it. I love it. That's wonderful advice. Yeah, you definitely do things scared, which is I'm learning to do that at age 54. So thank you for that
Yeah,
advice. All
yeah.
right, so now put on a different hat, and you're sitting down with young Lee, the businessman entrepreneur. You're ready to get going in business. What business advice are you going to give him?
Have a very clear strategy for your business growth.
Hmm.
Okay, understand your who your target audience is, but the biggest learning point is to uh, build the best team around you.
Hmm.
Okay, that will do the tasks that you need to be done.
Hmm.
Don't recruit people, and this is a personal learning point when I started the business, because when I was actually trying to grow the business, I was actually hiring people the wrong way. Okay,
Okay.
because I was hiring people who, like me, are not based on the jobs that I needed to be done.
Mhm.
Okay,
Interesting. Yep. Yep. That's good. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So I
Yep. Yep.
think that for me is to build a team around you that will get the jobs done that need to be done,
Okay.
and not necessarily the people who are like you. Okay, because
Yeah.
they don't need to like you. You don't need to like them.
No.
Okay. So what you need to do is actually have recruit someone who's really good at their job. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And who also excels in that job, and they have a vested interest in being the best at that job. Okay.
No. That's
So
great advice.
this,
Yep.
decide what needs to be done, and then build a profile of the kind of personality or the characteristics that you need
Hmm.
for that job to be done. Okay.
Yep.
And there's
Yep.
a great system that we use to enable that to happen. It's called IMA,
Hmm.
which is identify, modify, and adapt. And the emphasis behind the system is that everybody in the world falls into four distinct communication styles and personality styles.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if people want more information, I know that we're short on time, Drew. If they want more information, they can go to our website,
Okay.
which is www.expostars.com, and look at a questionnaire, which will actually tell them what communication style they are and what kind of jobs they're most suited to.
Okay. Wonderful. Well, you know what? I know that the audience is going to want to hear more about what you do and connect with you. So what's the best way for the audience to reach out to you?
Sure. The best way is LinkedIn, where they can follow me. because I do a lot of thought leadership on the world of trade shows and face-to-face engagement.
Okay.
Lee Ali, if they want to look me up on LinkedIn. And also they can find me lee@expostars.com, which is my email. And then they can also follow us on Twitter, which is Lee Ali 121, the number 121.
Yep.
They can follow me there as well. But mostly I am on LinkedIn, and that's
Wonderful.
the best place to learn more about me, what we do, and how we can support businesses that want to get the most out of their trade shows.
That's wonderful. Lee, this has been such a learning experience, certainly for me, and I'm sure the audience too. Thank you so much for coming on, and I'm grateful you're in my life and my community, and I got to thank Jack Gillet for introducing us. He's spot on about how wonderful a human being you are, Lee. So thank you again for coming on.
Thank you for having me, and it was a pleasure to talk to you. And I think we're very kindred spirits, and it's been my absolute pleasure to share my story with you.
Thank you so much. All right, take care, everybody. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe and give us a review to help others find it. I'd like you to answer this question. Are you living the life you want to live, or are you living the life others want you to live? I'd like you to think about that for a second, because I strongly suggest you live the life you want to live. If you want to learn more about what I stand for and my services and how I'm able to help many men get out of their own way, please go to my website at www.profitcompassion.com. Feel free to also email me at drew@profitcompassion.com. I'd love to have a conversation with you. Take care of yourself and choose to write your own story instead of letting others write it for you.